Namaskaram. Mahabharatam. We are on the fourth day's war. Before proceeding, last day we had gone through two shlokas from the famous Bheeshma Stuti. One was Sapadi Sakhivacho Nishamya, that is Bheeshma, and not Bheeshma, sorry. Krishna, as per Arjuna's request, taking the chariot to a position in between the two armies for Arjuna's to see who he is to fight in the forthcoming war. That was when Krishna took notice of the prominent Kaurava warriors like Bheeshma, Drona, Kripa, Shalya, and made a mental note how each of them have to be faced and ultimately killed in the war. That was the phrase where it said, युधितुरगरजो विधूम्रत सपदि सखिवचो निशम्य मध्ये निजपरयोर बलयो रथम निवेश्य स्थितवती परसैनिकायु रक्षणा हृतवती. Then Krishna killed all the opponents in effect, not actually, but essentially. In the sense, he made a mental note how to kill each of them, and that is their end, because then in the war it's a question of Arjuna or somebody sending an arrow and formally finishing their life. But Krishna had already done that. That is the Hritavati Parasainikayu. And one more shloka where Bheeshma, on the third day's battle, Bheeshma had jumped from the chariot and walked like a tempest to Bheeshma with the chakra, the discus in hand. Then Arjuna had to come running and pulling him back. At that time, we remembered Bhishma's promise that when he heard that Krishna would be on the Pandava side without taking up arms, then Bhishma said, okay, in that case I take an oath that I shall make Krishna take up arms. So this shloka says that Krishna, in spite of his promise, wanted to keep his devotee's promise truthful. So, Swanigamam apahaya malpratijñamritam adhikartu. And that is what Krishna said according to Bhishma. Why I said that, I mentioned that the occasion was at the beginning of war when Bhishma drove the chariot in between. But that is not true. It's only some, the different incidents mentioned in the Stuti happened at different points. But actually, the Bhishma Stuti is after the end of the war, when Bhishma for 58 days remained on a bed of arrows. He waited for the Uttarayana to come, for him to depart from this world. So that correction I make with apologies. And now, that was the third day's battle when Bhishma took up arms. We are now on the fourth day, and these day, fourth day and fifth day, there is nothing unusual happening. So we will not go too much into the details because the details are all uneventful. These are all repetitive and in a sense boring. But still, that day it started as usual when Dhritarashtra moans in front of laments in front of Sanjaya, who was describing the day's battle and lamenting. Why is that we are always on the defeating side? How is that the Pandavas always win? Anyway, Sanjaya, as usual, would reply that it was all because of the wrong attitude taken by Dhritarashtra. He yielded to Duryodhana's unfair demands and actions. That was the reason. Anyway, the fourth day's battle started between Drishtadyumna and Shalya. Drishtadyumna, the son of Panchala, and Shalya, the uncle of Nakula and Sahadeva, who accidentally happened to be on the Kauravas' side, though he had come to help Pandavas. It was an equal battle, but suddenly Shalya managed to cut Drishtadyumna's bow. In a war, you can imagine, if a bow is cut, the opponent is at a great disadvantage. Before he takes up another bow, great damage could be done. Just a well-aimed arrow is enough to kill. Anyway, that didn't happen. Abhimanyu noticed this and then drove his chariot quick to Drishtadyumna's side and faced Shalya in a one-to-one battle. And seeing this, the other Kaurava warriors also came and gave support to Shalya. That day, towards the evening, the Pandavas, especially Bheema, Abhimanyu, Satyaki, and Ghatotkacha, they thwarted all attempts of thrusts by the Kaurava army. They couldn't make inroads into the Pandava army. And by then the evening came and Bheeshma noticed that the warriors were all tired after a long day's battle, and the army was facing the Pandava veterans, especially Ghatotkacha. Ghatotkacha is a great warrior. He was the one who has been making great damage to the Kaurava army, and to face Ghatotkacha at that time was suicidal, because as evening approaches, Ghatotkacha grows in power, in strength. So Bheeshma advised that they should end the war for the day, and the Kaurava army withdrew their army from the battlefield, and Pandavas also followed suit. That day, again Duryodhana complained to Bheeshma. Why was that the Kauravas were facing defeat every other day. Uh, because Duryodhana's impression was that they have a better army, they have better veterans to fight, but in spite of that, they were facing defeat. Now Bhishma reminded Duryodhana, look, I have given you advice several times in the past, even before the war started, even in your younger days, that don't quarrel with the Pandavas, live peacefully. They are not doing unjustly, but you are the one who is unfairly treating them. And when the war started also, Bhishma advised him, don't start a battle. Have a peace talks with them and yield to their reasonable requests and avoid the war. But Duryodhana didn't heed. And besides, this time Bhishma said, look, I want to narrate an experience of mine. Once when I was in the Himalayas, in the Gandhamadana mountains, he saw Brahma there with several gods, and suddenly Brahma prostrated in front of nothing. There was no person to prostrate to, but Brahma suddenly prostrated. And when other gods asked, why, what is happening? To whom are you prostrating? Then Brahma said, Vishnu had appeared, not in his original form, but as Krishna or Narayana. At that time, Vishnu as Narayana and Arjuna as Nara and Narayana. They were the old-time sages. They were in fact considered to be the first sages on earth. And that Narayana appeared, so I prostrated before him because he is Vishnu. And Bhishma then explained to the gods that this Nara and Narayana, they will be taking birth on earth as Krishna and Arjuna, and they will be fighting against the evil forces and wiping the evil forces on earth as much as possible. This was the result of Mother Earth complaining to Brahma, and Brahma going with other gods to Vishnu and conveying to him the prayer of Mother Earth for relief, and Vishnu promising that he shall take birth as Krishna and destroy evil. So Bhishma said that you have Vishnu and that Nara, or Narayana and Nara on the Pandava side, and they are invincible. No force on earth can defeat them. So even now I ask you to avoid further war and further destruction. But of course it was in vain. That on the fourth day of the battle, two of Duryodhana's brothers were killed. Bhima had taken a pledge that he shall kill all the 100 Kauravas, Dhritarashtra's 100 sons in the battle. And he started by killing two that on the fourth day. Each day there will be an account, most of the days, an account of the Kauravas killed. Duryodhana's brothers killed 10 on some days, 12 on some other days. But I don't know if 100 are accounted for. But anyway, 2 were killed that day. And on the 5th day, Bheeshma formed the Makara Vyuha. Makara is a type of fish. Sometimes it is said as shark. So a formation like a shark. And to counter, the Pandavas formed a Shena Vyuha. Shena is a falcon or an eagle. Shena Vyuha. And that day, Shikhandi faced Bheeshma for a battle, but Bheeshma avoided him because of his promise that he shall not fight Shikhandi. That day, on the 5th day, Bhurishravas, who was a great warrior on the Kaurava side, he was one of the kings of the Kaurava dynasty. He killed 10 sons of Satyaki. And an enmity between Satyaki and Bhurishravas must have started that day. This is an event in the Mahabharata war between Satyaki and Bhurishravas. The 5th day's battle had no other significant event, and it ended with neither side having an advantage. So we also stop here. Namaskaram.